Hello and welcome to Transparent, where we do interviews and not interviews. My name is LaKendra Ford, and I feel so honored tonight because this has been one of those interviews that we've been trying for a while to get through because it's so powerful. And I am sitting here with Mr. Robert Saroza. Can everyone say hi to Robert? How you doing, Robert?
Hi, good evening.
Good, good, Robert. I know that what we're about to share with our audience is going to blow their minds. The same way when you shared with me, it actually touched my heart, and since then, it has manifested in so many different ways when I think of your story. So I just want to let them know just a little bit before I let you tell your testimony, share your testimony. I want you all to just take a look at this man because it's going to be really hard for you to believe that that smile, this guy right here, died 5 times. And if that wasn't enough, what he shares with you about that experience is going to blow your mind. So I thank you all for joining us, and I'm going to get right into it, Robert. Robert, can you just please tell us first a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Before I do, Kendra, I just want to say thank you for having me on. Uh,
Absolutely.
I'm honored to be on your program, and I just hope that I can change many lives. And this wouldn't happen without you. So I just want to let you know that I personally appreciate you for having me on and giving me the chance to share my testimony that can help out many people, whether they're fully faith or have no faith.
Absolutely.
Um, So my name is Robert Saroza. My previous career, I was a police officer, police detective in the state of New Jersey, born and raised. Today I'm 43 years old. I now have a wife and 3 children, and I left the police career to get involved in finance. Believe it or not, I know it's a huge transition. People think I'm nuts, but I left that for finance, and today I'm just in a better position where I can, financially educate people how money works, and I love what I do.
Absolutely. And this is how we met, actually. He was a financial consultant for me. And because of him, and also Kimberly Baez, we give a shout out to Kimberly Baez for
Yeah,
introducing us. I was able to get a lot of things in order for myself and my family. So I appreciate you, Robert, for guiding me through that process.
thank you.
But more so now you're in insurance and finances, and you used to be a police officer. Um, so what transpired that end up with you being able to come back from the dead, so to say?
So, actually, to believe it or not, like Kendra, I don't know if you know this, but newsflash, today's actually the 2 year anniversary. Uh,
2 years.
2 years today um,
Amen.
that we're filming this. That I died 5 times. I know it's shocking. Many people don't know other people that have died 5 times.
Right.
If I bring humor to it, that's how I keep myself sane, right?
Yes.
But today, 2 years ago, early morning, I went to bed the night before watching a Netflix show, Tiger Joe. I don't know if you ever heard of it,
Absolutely.
um, right? And the next morning, I remember waking up and being on the floor, gasping for air. In the beginning stages of me dying, there's several things that I'm not aware about that my wife fills in. So before I actually woke up on the floor, I already turned blue. 911 was already called, and actually my regular color, came back. I went. It was kind of like Willy Wonka when she eats the gum that she's not supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I wake up on the floor gasping for air, and it feels like every time you breathe out, you're getting kicked in your chest. I wish that pain upon nobody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm just there. And now I remember my training of getting in the fetal position, maybe help out with my breathing. So I got in the fetal position, I got comfortable. And I remember my wife being there, and EMS showed up, and the police department showed up. This is in New Jersey. And I remember the officer telling me, if you don't get up, you're going to die here.
Mm.
And the last thing I remembered is reaching out for his arm and being pulled up. And then I just went to bed. I slept. My wife fills in the gaps. She says
Mhm.
I actually continued talking after that, and they put me on the stair chair. Stair chair is the chair that you sit on when you're taking down by EMS down a set of steps.
Right, right.
Um, and she says that I looked at her and I said to her, I'm sorry, I'm tired, and my eyes rolled back, and
Mm.
that was the first time I passed. And there's a reason why I use the word pass, and I'll share with you that later. But that was the first time. They bring me on the ambulance. They start working on me. About 15, 20 minutes later, they bring me back.
Wow.
And as they're about to, so that's number two. Well, here
Mhm.
comes number two. And then as they're about to take off and transport me, I die again.
Wow.
And so they have to work on me more. They worked on me so long, Lakendra, that I don't know if people are aware out there, but there's actually machines that do CPR on you when the human can't go anymore.
Wow.
And they had to strap me on with that machine after the second time was, I think, about 30 to 40 minutes on the ambulance. And finally, it's kind of stabilized me. I came back and then they took me to the hospital. You
Wow.
know, one thing that Kendra, being a first responder, is that you never get some closure of what happened to certain victims.
Mhm.
And one of the things I did was I made sure I went back to the EMS guys and women that saved my life and brought me back, and I wanted to know why they continued.
Right, right.
Um, and they were amazed to see me up and going. They actually told me, which I didn't know this, that I actually showed up to the hospital dead again. And
Well,
so,
Robert, this is we have to pause right there because
sure.
um if anybody's thinking like I am, and I have unfortunately seen people go into cardiac arrest and so forth. What I can imagine your family at this time, the worry,
Mhm,
hearing that you're flatlining,
mhm.
and imagining them every time you came back, knowing that you were fighting, knowing that people were fighting for you, these EMT, these heroes.
Mhm.
That's amazing. I just wanted to pause for a second because we just needed to soak that in, that before you even got to the hospital, this had happened that many times. And salute to those EMT. Continue, please.
No, no problem. It's funny you say that because, you know, this is my second year anniversary, and today my wife, she always gives me an update, like, okay, and here at this time, I was doing this, and here, and it's like, it's like, wow. So in the hospital, it's COVID. COVID is starting to hit. By the way, this is not COVID related. What happened to me,
Mm-hmm.
but COVID it has already started. In full flame, and you're not allowed to show up to the hospital or come inside.
Right.
So they literally gave my wife maybe a couple of minutes every hour. And I remember my wife being brought. Well, I don't remember. This is what she tells me, that she came into the room, and she's like, "Don't you dare leave me!" Cursing. I'm an alpha male, right? You got to fight, and we got kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I flatlined again. It didn't work, right? So she calls one of our spiritual mentors. What do I do? And his name is Greg Cap, and he says to my wife, her name is Andrea Saroza, and he says to my wife, when you go back in there, you got to speak life into him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what she did. And then they had to escort her out because time was up. By the time they let her come back in, I already moved from that emergency room, I guess, to
Mm-hmm.
ICU.
Okay.
So her words of life speaking to me, I think, helped me a lot because it got me out of the emergency room and got me up to ICU. I got more stable, and I didn't pass away again after there's words of life. My wife is my angel because she's my wife. Because many people in that situation don't know what to do.
Right. Right.
We see it in movies all the time, but people that they're seeing their loved ones die, they don't know what to do. Many people just accept it, And very other people know what to do. And I'm grateful for that. My wife knew what to do.
Yeah.
Um, so all this stuff, remember my story here. All this stuff is happening in this world, but now I'm going to share with you what's happening in the other world that I'm in. Okay,
Right.
this is all was filled in by my wife and EMT workers. So what I'm about to share with you now is what's happening in the spiritual realm.
Right.
So, being in law enforcement for so many years in the state of New Jersey, I worked 10 minutes outside of New York City. I dealt with a lot. And I've always questioned if God is real, why is this happening? So, my
Right.
faith was always challenged, and I wasn't a 100% believer. Not many people knew this, right? Because, people get judgmental.
Right. Right.
So, I wasn't a 100% believer. And so here I am, I pass. And I'm floating in black space. Think about yourself laying on your back in bed and remove the bed and now you're just floating,
Right.
right? And so I'm floating in this black space and all of a sudden I can see from my left foot a figure starts to fade in from the darkness and it's Jesus. And he doesn't walk. And disclaimer, I always say this, and you know this, Kendra,
Mhm.
disclaimer, this is my experience.
Right. Right.
Okay. And he comes in from my right foot. I'm sorry, my right foot, and he floats around my legs, not over, around, and then he comes here on my left hip. And what he does is he picks me up, right, or guides me. Like when you get married and you pick up your spouse,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That the wedding carry.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
here I am, like looking at him, and you know, I look into his eyes and I just felt okay. I had this sense of peace. I had this sense of like, I know I'm going to be fine.
How did you
And
know, Robert, that this was Christ? What made you feel that?
it's everything we picture him as. Like, my experience, right? He's not black. He's not white. He's right in between. Sharp, pointy nose, deep eyes, thin lips, strong jawline, hair down to the shoulders, a brown, not light brown, not dark brown, but kind of in between. It's right here. And it was so clear, Lakendra, that I can see the lining in his cloth. I can see the stitching.
Mm.
That's how clear it was. I remember seeing the sandals when he came around, and I looked like, on this side, I can see the sandals. And it was just so clear. I mean, there was a statue that I seen after this happened of Jesus carrying a child. I'm like, that's exactly it. My wife showed me that, but I was like, that's exactly it. I just knew it was him. Plus, the emotional connection, the feeling, the atmosphere, the environment I felt, no one else can do that. And so there was a sense of peace, there was a sense of tranquility, and there was this overwhelming love. It's not like when you first meet your significant other, you get those little butterflies, you go to work, you get busy with life, you kind of forget about that feeling. And then when you're reunited, no, this is nonstop love. It's through you, it's around you. There's no way of getting away from it.
Mm.
Um, so, that's how I knew. Just having those feelings and those emotions of love and peace and tranquility, and in seeing him, I knew it was definitely him.
Did you know that you were that how did you know that you weren't like in a dream post to passed away, or was that even on your mind at all when you were
It's
experiencing this feeling, like what
it's
was going
not.
on with you?
It's not. It's not. We didn't talk. It was all through emotion. It wasn't like, hey Robert, you're here, but it's not your turn. I'm going to send you back. It was nothing like that.
Mm.
It was just I knew that I was in this stage, floating in this black space, seeing myself third party sometimes, seeing him come into the picture, holding me, and just looking at him. I started feeling those emotions,
Hmm.
and when he sensed that I felt those emotions, he gave me like a little grin, like one of those.
Mhm.
I guess sensing that we already related, and
Mhm.
then he just kind of like let me go slowly, and he turned around and just floated back into the darkness. And that was my experience with Jesus, and it was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like I had doubt about you. Here you are giving me love and tranquility and peace and reassurance that I'm going to be fine. And you kind of feel bad. It's like one of
Right.
those like, I told you so moments.
Right. Right.
Um, and then I get brought upon my feet, and now I'm floating like a ghost per se. And I run into a gentleman who was a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, that we both came on together to be through the police academy. That's how I met him. His name is Mark Zatonian, and Mark died in 2017. He died in a car accident on the way to work. And before that, Mark was a client of mine since about 2010.
Mhm.
And one of the things that you said in the country we did was, offer him insurance and retirement and things like that. And his always concern was making sure his family was going to be okay.
Right.
And I always had to reassure him, like, Mark, I got you. Don't worry about it. If something happens to you or when, your family's going to be taken care of. And these are the conversations we had in this world. And so when Mark passed and I see him, it's not like, hey, what are you doing here? Like,
Mm.
it was just like, hey, what's going on, Mark? How are you? Like we never skipped time.
Right. Right.
And we held each other, we hugged each other, and I was like, Mark, did you see what we did? And he was like, totally, thank you so much. And this and that. I said, I told you, Mark, I was going to take care of your wife and son. Like we got your back. And it was just so grateful. And there's a lesson in that too, right? You never know who you're going to see on the other side. But he
Right.
was so grateful for what we did for him. And we just held each other a little bit more. And then he faded away. I faded away. And my eyes opened up. And I'm looking at this white ceiling with, those commercial ceilings. And
Mhm.
I'm in ICU. And I'm very disoriented. I have no clue where I'm at. Um, I don't know what's happened to me at this point. I didn't know I was dead. But I will tell you, when it comes to time wise, my experience in the spiritual world, in the spiritual realm, was about 10 minutes long.
Mm.
In this world, it was 9 days,
Wow.
days long.
Okay, look, so let's pause right there for a second. Did y'all hear him say that it felt like 10 minutes of him in the spiritual realm,
Hmm.
but it was actually literally 9 days that he laid there in a hospital.
Hmm.
That's wow. That's wow. So, all right. So you've been prayed through. You're laying on this bed. You're looking at this ceiling. You don't know what's happening. How did you feel the first moment that you realized? Did someone come over to you that you realize you're in the hospital and you're in bad shape?
No one, whoever. So the first person I ran into in my second, like my reborn, was this Asian gentleman who was a nurse who was all geared up, protective gear. And I'm like, what's going on in my head? I'm like, am I on a reality show or something? Uh, and so long story short, like no one remember The Walking Dead, right? Where season one, episode one, the sheriff officer wakes up and it's going mayhem. That's what I woke up to. It was pure mayhem. There was patients in their gowns running in the hallways. There was nurses and doctors chasing these people. And then, like, just thinking about it little by little, and then the TV was on,
Mm-hmm.
and something came up about COVID, and it hit me. I'm like, I remember COVID starting to happen before this happened to me. And I'm
Right,
like,
right.
oh my God, COVID has, made people mad and they're going crazy. This is what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, because of this, with my background in law enforcement, I become very defensive. And, I realized that, I look at myself, I check out my limbs and check out my what's going on. I still got everything's good. But I realized that I'm bedbound. I'm unable to bend my left leg.
Mm.
So I'm like, oh man, something happens to me. What am I going to use to fight these people off? and I feel, and I still have the marks here, but I feel I have a tube in my throat here,
Mm-hmm.
right, which was used for dialysis, which I didn't know. So
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm going to use my blood. I'm going to pull this tube out and spray it on people in case they try to attack me, so they can get COVID and possibly go crazy and die. But
You, wow.
right,
That's
again,
reach.
right, yeah, defense mode, right, survival, right.
Mm-hmm.
No one said to me, "Hey, Robert, look, this is what happened.
Right.
You passed. You've been here 9 days. Your wife and children are okay. They're fully." No one came in and had that conversation with me.
Right.
They just came in and, like, like checking your triage, doing your blood pressure, and hey, talking to me, and it's like you're in defense mode because no one's cued you on, like, why you're here.
Right. No one's
You know?
explaining anything. Yep.
So I'm fighting these nurses. I'm sleep deprived. I'm not eating for several days. I'm not sleeping because this is the my I'm thinking that they're trying to kill me to take my organs.
Oh
This is,
Lord.
you start losing a little bit when you start going sleep deprived. Plus, a lot of the medication I was on while intubated, right, causes hallucination when you wake up.
Mm.
Okay, so I'm going through this stuff, and finally I get a chance to speak to my wife. And when I speak to my wife, she's like, "Hi, babe, how are you?" And the first thing that comes out of my mouth, and I'm not going to curse, but it's like, "This is BS.
Mm-hmm.
Get me out of here now." And then she's the one that says, "No, you have to stay there. You died." And I'm like, my wife is in on it as well. So I'm thinking
Listen,
she's,
you thinking you in the middle of the apocalypse, and,
yeah.
and the
And my
world is
my
ended,
wife
huh?
is in on it. She wants my organs too, and so I'm sleep deprived. I'm not eating because I'm thinking that they're trying to poison me. Or remember in Batman when the smoke would come in and through the vents and will knock people out. I'm thinking that that's going to happen. So I'm fighting a lot, and there's a reason why I'm sharing this with you, Kendra. And I promise you, I'm going to bring it back. So I'm fighting a lot of the nurses. I'm fighting a lot of the doctors, and these updates are given to my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so after 3 or 4 days of still being in ICU and fighting these people and not eating and not sleeping and just watching TV as much as I can, um, there's a female nurse to my right of the bed. And all of a sudden comes in a male African American nurse. And I share that with you because there's a point to everything, right? So he comes into the room and he's dressed in different scrubs than everybody else. They're light green. Okay. Everybody else has their scrubs, the doctors have theirs. This guy is dressed in totally different.
Mm-hmm.
And this nurse that's to my right, she walks around my bed and she goes to exit. But when she exits, when she's going towards the door, their elbows, like their this part of the arm, kind of like go through each other. And I'm saying, okay, that's not normal. Am I
Mm-hmm.
really hallucinating that bad? What's going on? Right? And he comes up to my bedside on my left, and he's like, "How you feeling, Robert?" And my jersey goes, "Who the heck are you?" Because remember, I'm in defense mode. I'm fighting everybody. Who the heck are you? He goes, "My name is Kendrick, and your wife sent me." And then he goes to me. She wants me to tell you to stop fighting everybody because outside, every single day since you've been here, she's praying for you in the car with a whole bunch of social media followers. He's like, every day at 7 o'clock, she's outside the hospital in the car praying for you. And he's like, "I'm a warrior prayer, a prayer warrior." That's what he says to me. So when I hear him speak, I hear my wife. Different body, same message. I'm like, I hear my wife. And then it's like, I just agree to it. I'm like, okay, I'll stop fighting. I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And he like, he holds me, touches my wrist, and he's like, "All right, just behave yourself. I'm leaving now." He turns around, walks away. So here's the point of that message. About a week or two later, when I'm more coherent of what's happening and I understand what's happened to me, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like a miracle. And it's like, dude, of all people, I die 5 times. What the heck, right?
Right, right.
Um, I speak to my wife about this gentleman. His name is Kendrick.
Mm-hmm.
So I say, love, there was somebody who came and visited me. And when he spoke to me, he sounded like you. And I go through the whole spiel with her. And she gets a little emotional about it. See, for my wife, it hit her a lot faster than it hit me because this is what happened.
Right.
My wife was praying for me. My wife was praying for Jesus to show up in the flesh and speak to me to calm me down so I was willing to take the treatment and the medication and the help I needed to get better. This is what she tells me. She goes, I prayed for Jesus to show up in the flesh and speak to you. So it hit me. Well, here's the miraculous part of the story other than that. There is no Kendrick.
Wow.
She's called the hospital. She says, "Do you guys have a person by the name of Kendrick?" No, there's nobody here who works there by that name. The nurse that was in the room with me that walked out doesn't know who doesn't they didn't see anybody. And this nurse had built a good relationship with my wife because she was the point of contact for everything that was happening in the room.
Right.
She's like, "No, I've been the only person in the room all night."
And it's during the COVID time, so it's especially not going to be two of them or two
Right.
like gone.
With COVID, I mean, during this era, it's like I was always the first one seen when I eventually got up ICU, just to show you how it's difficult to get to me. When I got to a regular floor, I was always the first one seen, and then they would strip down and then strip back up and go see everybody else because everybody else on the entire floor had COVID
Mm.
except me. In ICU, it worked the same way. They would see the COVID patients first, then strip down, sanitize up, and then they would dress up again, and then just come see me
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't want to, contagious, obviously. So there is no Kendrick. Never was, never is, not in their employee directory. The nurse that was inside the room with me, she said I was the only, to my wife, I was the only person that was there.
Wow.
But every day, and I kid you not, and for every day for 33 days outside of the hospital, the power of prayer works, folks. My wife was out there on social media live for 33 days with my children sometimes, um, just praying for me to get better. And, anybody who jumped on that prayer session, thank you. I appreciate you as well. But the power of prayer works. I'm still here.
I believe that completely, and I know that people are listening because there's going to be always two different ears that listen to something like that. It's going to be our physical, but then it's going to be our spiritual ears. And what I'm hearing right now, um, in my spirit is this is the other realm. This is how God reveals himself. He doesn't need to come the way you expect. He doesn't need to come the way you've seen as you lived on earth. Our time is not his time.
Mhm.
And when he calls us home, he calls us home. And that's very difficult for me to say, being that I just lost my very best friend, which is
Yeah.
my mom. But what touches me about, and it just so happened you told me this before my mom passed away. And I remembered your story as after I left the hospital with her, and I felt this energy of that she was, I just looked at her day and then I just knew my mom was not here anymore.
Mhm.
And I went home that night and I thought about you, my brother.
Oh, you text
Because
me.
yes, and I text you. And that's why when they told me on the morning of 9/11 that she had chose that she was not in this physical realm anymore, I said, even though it's too much for me to handle.
Mm-hmm.
She's with God.
Mm-hmm.
And if he took her and allowed her to come, she wanted to go to him, I
Mm-hmm.
can't be mad.
Mm-hmm.
Because how they say everybody want to believe in God, but scared to meet him.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing to be scared about.
But scared to
Um,
meet him. We just have to make use of the time that we have here. But everything, like I said, everything goes into design. You shared your story right before my storm. And it gave me encouragement. And for anybody who can be cynical, maybe not religious or spiritual, oh, it can't be real. That can't be real. But did you die though? That's been my question. We could all have an opinion if we've never um, crossed that path, and it is documented and recorded that this man has passed flatline 5 times, and he's here and present. So tell us really quickly. I don't want to keep you too long because I know you're a busy man, and I thank you for taking this time. But what is it how has it changed your life today?
so some of the things I've learned, and there's three major ones that I share with everybody. Um, first of all, today what I'm considered like a counselor in the Bible, just to remind people that God is real and He's always working, whether you know it or not. Um, Several things that we gain on the other side is tranquility, peace, and love. Those are three major emotions and feelings we gain on the other side. But we also lose some emotions that some of you may like. We lose worry, doubt, fear, pain, and suffering. We
Mm-hmm.
lose them all. You don't even know what they are. Never existed, right? It's like when you're a child. You don't know what those things are. Never existed. So
Right.
it's the same way when we pass over. The reason why I say pass is because I know we don't die.
Mm.
We pass. Our bodies stay behind, but our spirit, our energy does pass over to the spiritual realm. That's why you hear me say pass, pass, pass. Um, but I will tell you of aspects of life. If you have a relationship in your life that has not been amended, go amend it. Forgiveness is for you. It's not for the other person.
Yes.
One thing when I woke up was I didn't have a great relationship with my biological parents or my stepfather, you know. And one of the things I did was rekindle it, right? I want to make sure that this time when I go out, my closet is clean. If that
Right.
makes any sense, right? No regrets. So make sure maybe you just thought about somebody right now when I said that. Amend the relationships with those that are not amended. It's not for them, it's for you. Secondly, don't sweat the small stuff. Who cares? Somebody talks bad about you. Who cares what they post on social media? Nothing's bad. It's just who cares, right? So just enjoy life for what it is, and stop worrying about a bill not being paid. Or who cares? It's going to be taken care of in the end.
Right.
When I passed La Kendra, there was no U-Haul truck following me on the ambulance with all my stuff,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
So just don't sweat the small stuff. And lastly, if you have children, if your son or daughter want to spend time with you, no matter how old they are, drop what you're doing. Your job is not more important. Nothing in life is more important than those that you're supposed to raise and protect, which are your children,
Right.
right? If you don't have children, maybe it's your significant other. Stop what you're doing. Too many of us are so busy with work and everything else. That's only relevant. But the love you share with your loved ones, that's irreplaceable. Stop what you're doing and spend time with them. If my son wants to spend time with me, I drop my appointments. If my daughters want me to go watch them or do something, I drop whatever I'm doing because that time is not replaceable. But most importantly, like what happened to me, you can be perfectly healthy one day and wake up on the floor gasping for air the next. So you don't know when your time is. So make sure you value that time with your loved ones because you don't know how much time you have left here.
Amen. You just spoke a word, and I think it all sums up to that. You know, to everyone who's watching, we want to thank you, and
Mhm.
also to support what he said. A lot of things won't matter, but the love, our legacy, the things we do right and righteous in this world, that's what's going to matter.
Mhm.
And if we have a chance to get it right, no matter what you call God, and that good thing about God is even if you don't check for him, he checks for you. So
Yeah.
that's a wonderful thing. And I thank you for sharing your testimony, Robert. So I always leave with this last question. And I want you to finish this statement if you
Okay.
can. The legacy of Robert Sarosa will be found where?
It's a tough one. I would say in my testimony of how I change other people's lives and try to help them either follow Jesus, believe in Jesus, or have some sense of peace, like you, Lakendra, with possibly someone who they've lost in their life. I think that's where it's at. I think that's why I'm still here because I'm just trying to remind people that God is real. And every conversation I have, and you know this, Lakendra, every conversation I have with a stranger, anybody, I always get it in there about God. I actually have a YouTube video now that has my testimony as well. So there's always a way that I try to remind someone to make their life better and remembering that God is working for them, whether they believe it or not. So I think that's part of big in my legacy. That hey, I know personally many people I've saved
Right.
um, and brought back to having a relationship with the man upstairs. And I'm okay with that. That can leave you better than I found you yesterday. I think I'm okay with that.
Well, that's wonderful, my brother. Thank you so, so,
Okay.
so much for sharing. I hope this touches, and I really divinely hope that this touches people's heart. Not our words, but his words.
Mhm.
Not our truth, but his truth, because it's going to come through. And for each individual be different, but I hope this inspires someone. Y'all take it easy out there. Thank you so much. If you want to, I'll leave in the description the way that you can follow Mr. Robert Sarosa's ministry. Him and his wife and family are doing wonderful things in the community. And if you want to reach out to him for some financial advice, he is also an excellent person to speak to about that. So I thank you once again, Robert. I want you to have a
Thank you.
wonderful evening, and I just salute you for carrying this testimony throughout the rest of this journey. Thank you,
Thank
my
you.
brother. Well, we'll see you next time, okay?
I
Come
hope so.
again. All right.